Earlier this year, I made a video titled, "Can anyone beat Leclerc?" And that has aged badly, like really poorly. Aged about as well as a banana on the surface of the sun. Since that video, Ferrari has tried its absolute hardest through poor reliability, a couple driver mistakes, and the worst damn strategy calls y'all ever did see to make sure Leclerc is not leading the championship anymore. And it worked! He's not! Now, Verstappen has a hefty lead at the top of the drivers' table with 258 points going into the summer break. That's 80 points clear of Charles Leclerc. For a bit of perspective, the largest points deficit anyone has ever overcome in the modern scoring system to go on to win the championship is 44, overcome by Vettel in 2012. And so the question we're asking today is, can anyone beat Verstappen? We're going to look at this one more mathematically than the last video, breaking down the scenarios each driver needs if they have any hope at all of beating the Dutchman, how many points they need to get, and how few Verstappen needs to get to even be catchable at the top of the table. And then we can discuss how likely each of these scenarios are. My name is Mr. V. Like this video and subscribe to the channel for more F1 garbage, you know how it works. Let's take a look. So, let's start at the bottom. As of the summer break, Schumacher, Tsunoda, Zhou, Stroll, Albon, and Latifi are all out of contention. Oh no! Oh well, you'll get up next year, lads. The maximum possible points anyone can score now for the rest of the season is 242. That's 9 race wins, 9 fastest laps, and also 8 points for the sprint win in Brazil. Vettel and Gasly both find themselves on 16 points, exactly 242 behind Verstappen. And that means if either of these two win all 9 races with all 9 fastest laps and win the sprint race, and Verstappen scores 0 for the rest of the season, they will draw on points at the top of the table. In this scenario, whichever of these two does this will actually win the title because it will be decided on number of wins and they will have 9 to Verstappen's 8. Now, if you're thinking this scenario sounds unlikely, yes. While this is technically possible, this would mean either of these drivers equaling the record for consecutive wins in a row, 9, which is actually held by Vettel from the 2013 season. However, even in 2013, Vettel did not get all 9 fastest laps in that time, so this would mean going on the single most dominant win streak in F1's history, and also for Verstappen to score 0. The odds of this are so astronomically low that these two would be much better off just going out and buying lottery tickets for the rest of the season. Their chances of success would be much higher. We're going to give these two an F for championship likelihood. While technically possible, the most likely outcome is that they'll both be out of contention by the end of the Spa weekend. While we're at it, we may as well throw the rest of the midfield into the same bucket of technically possible, but there's no hope in hell. Ricciardo, Magnussen, Alonso, Bottas, Ocon, and Norris are in a situation where it's technically possible for them to win the championship, but they would basically need to swap cars with Verstappen. Of these drivers, Norris has the most points on 76. If he scores all 242 for the rest of the season, he will end on 318. That would mean Verstappen only has to score 61 for the entire rest of the season to beat him. That's 6.77 points per race. An average finishing position of 6th would win the championship for Verstappen, which is pretty doable considering his average finish position currently, including DNFs, is 4.5. So again, in reality, all of these guys get a big fat F for their chances. The next 3 in the order have all entered the summer break on very similar points. Hamilton on 146, Sainz on 156, and Russell on 158. This puts them all 100 points-ish behind Verstappen with 9 races and a sprint to go. For any of them to beat Verstappen, they would need to outscore him by, on average, 11 points per race, also known as coming first with the fastest lap when Verstappen comes 3rd. Now, this is not unheard of. Again, it's exactly what Vettel did in 2013, scoring 9 straight wins while his championship rival, Alonso, only scored 13.6 points per race. Then again though, Vettel was driving the RB9, which was one of the most dominant cars in F1 history, so again, this is not a likely outcome, but it is possible. It's hard to say exactly which of these 3 has the best chances of doing this. Sainz, in his Ferrari, is still driving the fastest car on the grid, in theory. His race strategy though is managed by Ferrari, so if he can overcome this, and by overcome this I mean just ignore everything he gets told on the radio, Sainz actually has the best average finishing position of anyone other than Verstappen, excluding DNFs. And really, that is the other weak link in this chain. Sainz has 4 DNFs already this season, joint most on the grid. Chances of another one? High. And if that does happen, really it puts the final nail in the coffin of Sainz's chances. Looking at the two Mercedes boys, really I don't see their car being in a position to score this many points. The Mercedes is getting closer and closer to the front, and I would predict that the team pulls in at least one win before the end of the season. But 9 wins in a row? Nah. I give the two Mercedes boys an E for likelihood, while Sainz gets a D. In theory, Perez has the simplest task here. In the same car as a championship leader, just gotta drive faster than your teammate, right? Well, what's that? Your teammate is generational talent Max Verstappen? And the team has been building itself around him for the last 6 years? Oh. Perez only has to outscore Verstappen by 86 points. That's about 9.5 per race. A couple wins for Perez, a couple DNFs for Verstappen, bada bing, bada boom. Title is yours. However, having the same car as Verstappen is both a gift and a curse. Yes, at times it is the fastest car on the grid, but that car is quite clearly being developed towards Verstappen more and more. Perez was looking spicy in the first half of the season, but really since his win in Monaco, we started to see a slump, which is probably explained quite well by Red Bull developing the car away from a rear-ended understeer machine towards a pointy, front-ended oversteer monster, which suits Verstappen's style very nicely. As the car is getting developed further and further away from his comfort zone, Perez is seemingly finding it harder to keep up, making any kind of title challenge less and less likely. I'd give him a D+ in terms of likelihood. A little better than Sainz, mainly due to just having a few more points to play with, but held down by the fact that the entire Red Bull organisation is doing everything it can to ensure Max, and only Max, is winning races. And now, the big one. As I said at the top, Leclerc is 80 points behind Verstappen. No one has ever overcome that many points in the modern system to win the title. This points deficit is partially down to factors outside of Leclerc's control. He's had 2 DNFs caused by mechanical failures, but then again, so has Verstappen. These DNFs are not all created equally, with Leclerc retiring from the lead twice, whereas Verstappen retired from second both times, which means that if we took all of these DNFs away, the points difference between the two would only actually be 52 points. Leclerc has also suffered from a number of unusual strategy calls from Ferrari. He quite obviously missed out on points in Hungary, Britain, and Monaco due to awful pit strategy calls, or in some cases, the lack of calls altogether. All of this means that this 80-point gap is hiding the fact that Leclerc is still the fastest man on the grid. He has taken over half of the poles this season, but 80 points is 80 points. Being quick doesn't matter if you don't finish the race. To win the title, Leclerc needs to outscore Verstappen by exactly 9 points per weekend. That's a lot. That's more than the average points difference between Verstappen and Hamilton this season. For that to happen on track without any DNFs, Ferrari effectively need to 1-2 every race, with Sainz also coming in second to hold Verstappen in third. That's a tough ask. Will it happen? Almost certainly not. Leclerc's only chance, really, is for luck to swing massively in his favour. A couple DNFs for Verstappen, maybe a safety car where Verstappen misses the pit window, ends up finishing the race in 6th, that kind of thing. Based on the season so far though, luck doesn't exactly love Ferrari. We have to assume at least an equal amount of misfortune for each driver, which means that any point swing has to be gained on track. If Leclerc wins every race and Verstappen comes second in all of them, Verstappen wins. If Leclerc wins every race with fastest lap and Verstappen comes second, Verstappen wins. If Leclerc wins everything and Verstappen is always third, Leclerc actually takes the title in Brazil. But if they swap first and third in just a single race, for instance a Verstappen home win at Zandvoort, Verstappen wins the title. Getting all 9 fastest laps in this scenario would hand the title back to Leclerc, but that's not really something you can rely on, particularly when Red Bull has Perez, who they can just hang back in like 9th place on a 5-stop strategy, burning tons of soft tyres just to ensure Leclerc does not get that point. So, it is possible for Leclerc to win this title, but it will be the biggest points comeback in F1 history if he does. It will require an insane amount of luck and good strategy from Ferrari. Likelihood? Not very likely. I would give Leclerc a C- on his chances. Sounds alright, until you consider Verstappen's chances of just holding on to the title and doing nothing at A, maybe A+. The sad fact of the matter is, we're probably going into the summer break already knowing who our world champion is. No last race deciders, no huge controversies. For those of you new to the sport, this isn't anything new. We basically had the same thing in 2020, 2019, the second half of 2018 and 17, 2015, 2013, my god, that one wasn't even close, 2011, That's not to say, though, that the season won't be exciting. There's stories all up and down the grid to enjoy. Who gets second in the constructors between Ferrari and Mercedes? Does Lewis Hamilton continue his streak of a win every single season of his career? Do any of these rising stars pick up their first win? Which team comes fourth? The love affair between Latifi and Walls, I'm looking at you, Singapore. And of course, we always have Silly Season, which I must say is turning out to be particularly silly this season. That's what's amazing about Formula 1. There's still fun to be had regardless of who's winning, regardless of even if there's a fight at the front or not. It's a sport that you can watch without supporting anyone, just tuning in every week to see some cars go meow. Let's hope that this video doesn't age as poorly as the Leclerc video. Actually, no, let's hope that it does, because then that would mean we get a championship fight at the end of the season. Either way though, like this video if you liked it. Let me know how you think the championship is going to play out down below. Subscribe to the channel and stick around for more F1 garbage. But until then, I've been Mr. B. Stay safe, and I will see you guys later.